The Jack 3 no oop race at AGDQ 2016 was one of the best things to ever happen for the Jack speedrunning community. Right when activity was starting to die down, the race would push the scene into a second wind. Many who tune in to see the race live would join the Jack Speedruns Discord server, the new primary hub that we had migrated to from Skype. The new no oop category was a fresh spin on the old Jack 3 80% route, and the drive had returned for Bob and myself to grind. The new goal for the two of us was to now push it below the next minute barrier. 43xx was the goal, a time that would make you work for it. With our personal bests being 44:41 and 44:42 respectively, the milestone was not going to be easy, especially considering there were no new time saves to take advantage of. This was a matter of polishing the foundation and strengthening your fundamentals. After Bob and I returned home from AGDQ, it wouldn't take us long until our competitive drives got us back into doing attempts. The road to 44 was already quite the journey, at least for me. Some runs were just not meant to be. Other runs had insane backup strats. Oh! And some runs were just cursed.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
The journey to the 43 was now on, and I would start off well with this run, coming out ahead after Satellite. I would enter second gear at Defend Ashland, coming out to -17. As I approached the mid-game, I was feeling very confident. These jetboarding missions are what I consider to be some of my strongest and most practiced sections, but I quickly started making multiple uncharacteristic mistakes.
You have to be kidding me. No! Ah! Come on, dude. Nope, didn't get it. This run is pretty bad now. I lost over 30 seconds in the last 4 splits, dude.
Despite being disappointed with my poor play, I pushed onwards because I knew I had plenty of time save in the next mission, Palace Ruins. At this point in time, this level was without question the hardest and most volatile mission in no oob. Back when Lapagnier ran the game, his primary focus was on survival and getting through with as few mistakes as possible. Side flips weren't standard yet, and the hover glitch hadn't been found either, so the pacing of the level was fairly slow. The enemies were certainly a problem, but were manageable enough to deal with due to his more deliberate approach. With how much more speed-centric jetboarding has become since, the enemies become a much larger annoyance, but they are far from the worst you have to deal with in this level. It is now that the true enemy of Jack 3 really starts to rear its head, and it's one that might not be so obvious.
I think at first, when like a new runner see Jack 3, they're like pretty big skips. That's like the scary part. You practice those and then you get those done, and then you realize the actual difficulty of Jack 3 is the terrain.
Especially in something like Jack 3 No, there's a lot of jetboarding in different terrain. Palace Ruins, there's Eco Mines, there's Temple, there's Darkship as well. All of it's different. There's so many possible ways that things can go slightly wrong, slightly differently. And so, yeah, the adjustments that you'd have to make in all of those missions to be a good player, you can practice doing it the same way every time, but it won't go the same way every time. So you have to be able to adapt. You have to be a very adaptive player to do well in those jetboard missions.
Like, you can lose way more time to just not being comfortable with the terrain on the jetboard. You can constantly lose your speed, get bumped by enemies if you're not fully aware of like everything. That just allows for a higher skill cap, really. It's like you can be very good at the game and still lose a lot of time to all of that little stuff.
I would end up saving about 7 seconds on the world record in Palace Ruins. I could have saved more, but it's a level where it's difficult to point out exactly one mistake. You either get a good flow going, or you're slipping on banana peels every 20 seconds. I was going up against my 213 BTR in this run, so I was expecting to fall behind, but I just barely stayed ahead by less than a second.
I want to remind you guys that my BTR and my PV was literally God tier, which is 213, and 219 is still really good. Oh, instantly got it too. It's like the earliest I've ever hit that. And around. Hit it. There we go. Alright, that should be a new record. It's like a 419. 430, I think. Yeah, 4430. That's okay though. This isn't the final time, so any improvement is welcome. but I should have paid more attention.
4430 was certainly not the final end goal, but a nice record improvement nonetheless. The description of my run showed my determination for the 43, and I was ready to put the game down for a while to run Ratchet & Clank once I had reached the milestone. But this wasn't a one-horse race. Bob was just as hungry for a 43, and was equally as capable. He would get a pretty dank time coming out of Satellite with 5 doubles. Despite there being quite a few splits involving RNG in the early game, Bob barely seemed to deviate much from his PB, which was very impressive to watch. His decision making on gathering boosts in the desert was a bit more aggressive in comparison to me. He wouldn't hesitate to go for as many boosts as he could, whereas I wouldn't be taking the fight if I considered it to be too far out of the way. Neither approaches are inherently worse or better, just a different school of thought. Bob would go for a slightly safer concussor high jump to the upper ledge in the volcano by wedging Jack into a crack. This was also the strat he used in the GDQ race. The mid-game is where Bob would really start to run away with the lead. With some excellent jetboarding, he was stacking up the time save. In Palace Ruins, Bob nearly hits one of the hardest hovers in the run, which is making it over this breakable wall. Unfortunately, he gets off the jetboard too early. Still 23 seconds ahead, he now heads into BTR. With him nailing the trick at GDQ, Bob was committed to going for first barrier skip.
Okay. No, that is really bad. Oh, okay, that was convenient.
Looking at the rest of the time save on his splits, Bob knew 43 was just barely possible on this run, but the only way to make it happen was to go all out in the big room. With everything on the line, he went for it.
Dang. We're at 43. Dang. This can still world record though. I wouldn't be Bob if I didn't go for the stupid hard strat on a good run. Oh no. Alright, 44:10.
Despite a bit of time loss at the end, this was still a spectacular run for the category, showcasing that 43 was far from a simple task. Keep in mind too, Bob never used to run the old Jack 3 any % when Tokens, Ecomine, and Bomb Train was in the route, so he had no prior experience with those missions. He showcased a great level of adaptation and achieved an outstanding time because of it. The end of the run could have been stronger, but the first half of the run had no glaring mistakes. 11 seconds to go for Bob, and 31 seconds for me. 43 was so close, but in my pursuit for the time, I got distracted. My eyes were simply elsewhere. I was starting to get pretty hooked on Ratchet & Clank. Like most speedrunners, swapping to a different game is natural. There are some who are satisfied with running just one game, but many find the joy in learning a new movement system to be very refreshing. I was just enjoying it more at the time, and so I decided to take an indefinite hiatus from Jak 3, knowing I would probably be back eventually. Similarly, Bob also decided to focus more on Jak 1 and 2, to prepare for his Jak trifecta attempts. Eventually, he would find himself with less and less time to speedrun at all. He would still do the occasional race, but stop pursuing the 43 as he just felt burned out after playing too much. It was a pretty anticlimactic end to what could have been a long-lasting rivalry, but in due time, 43 was going to happen. It just wasn't going to come from us. Raccoon, who was one of the runners most fond of the old any % route, tried his hand at no oob. It was clear that the new missions felt awkward for him, but was still undeniably skilled at the rest of the game, and could easily surpass Bob and I if he got back in top form. He quickly became the third person to achieve a 44, which indicated that his march upwards seemed inevitable. For him to be the one to claim the fabled 43, nobody was going to question he had the ability. It was a matter of when, but that when would never come. That 44.52 is still Raccoon's no-oo PB today, and it is his final Jak 3 speedrun. He would occasionally play Jak 2 in the coming years, but I think he was satisfied with what he had accomplished in Jak 3, and just wanted to do something else. Yankee was also nowhere to be seen, and didn't touch any of the games in early 2016. So, who was gonna go for the 43? Hey, you hadn't forgotten about Goofy, had you? Up until now, Goofy was never in contention for the no oob world record when Bob and I were lowering it leading up to GDQ. This is simply because he was busy improving his times in Jak 3's other categories, namely any percent and hero mode. Perhaps after watching the race though, Goofy felt inspired and took a proper dive into the category. It was going to be interesting to see if he was capable of reaching top level in no oob, given his history of only being able to perform well in the game's shorter categories. All doubt would essentially be erased immediately, as Goofy showed what he was made of when he dropped a 43:44 no oob time in a race. Goofy's movement in this run is cracked. I mean, look at this tempo climb. The opening hover at the start of Eco Mine was pushed to its next level, as Goofy does it from a standstill instead of walking over to the usual position where Bob and I do it from. He doesn't even line up the camera in time and still hits the angle perfectly. Goofy's BTR in this run was a 2:11, the best we've seen so far. But believe it or not, that's bad by Goofy standards. He was extremely dominant in hero mode around this time, and the culminative hours he had in the category would really elevate his level of play in BTR above and beyond. Since he reached the mission at the 8-minute mark in the category, he would get a lot of BTR practice, and was averaging between 2 minutes to 2:05 in runs. His movement in the Dark Ship Big Room was so confident. He spent no time killing the enemies and cleared the platforms with a sick chain into a hover. Don't mind the time on the left, Goofy accidentally stopped his timer during Cave Skip. This was the world's first 43. One hand. With the record firmly in his grasp, he sat comfortable at the number 1 spot, and went back to improve on hero mode. For a few months, no oob wouldn't see any movement on the leaderboard near the top, but more people were trying out the category as the run count would increase to 15. However, in July 2016, a new trick would drag Goofy back to no oob. And this one's a little silly.
For Dex Swap, it was just I was just practicing hero mode, like driving with boosts over the island, and I used that exact spot to reset like the driving for myself, and I kept going for like a good while, and then suddenly I jumped in and I just spawned at tempo. I'm like, what? What's this? What happened?
This is Water Warp, which would later be coined Dex Warp, a trick we still don't really know the inner workings of even today. A checkpoint wrong warp of sorts, putting you from the second to last island to the midway checkpoint located halfway up the temple climb. I'll let this tutorial by runner Avi Iker do the explaining.
So you need a boost. Jump from here, don't touch the controller, boost before the water, go into first person when you hit the water. Easy 35 seconds. Done.
With this new trick, Goofy now had a reason to return to no oob, and on July 5th of 2016, he skipped straight to the 42 on his first PB back to the category. Granted, the Dex Warp was actually more like 45 seconds, but geez, calm down, Goof. Now that we actually get to see how Goofy tackles a slightly longer category with more challenging missions, it was clear to everyone that his movement on the jetboard was different from everyone else. Easily the most distinct the game had ever seen.
Jetboarding, of course, I don't think there's really anyone in terms of speed that can match Goofy's jetboarding.
He has the ability to fit in side flips where you wouldn't even think about going for it, you know?
He does this thing that I don't really see other people do, where his like side flips are so close to the ground. I'm like, he's gonna go like 90 degrees, right? But he I don't know, he's just like perfected that.
Like the main thing is like Goofy side flips. Just the instant, like every single like chance he gets, he just short hop side flip, short hop side flip, short hop side flip.
He's just like
as soon as he gets the jetboard, like, bro is unmatched. There's a reason we call Goofy side flips Goofy side flips. He was sort of the start of that.
He made the jetboard look so enticing to play with, and that's part of the reason how I got sucked into speedrunning in the first place, because when I was watching him jetboard around, I was like, he looks so free. Like, just whatever he wants to do, wherever he wants to go on the jetboard, he can do it.
When it didn't seem conceivable for the jetboard to have another layer to it, Goofy found a way to bend the game to his will. His fast jetboarding was on full display in his 42:59, an amazing run all around. It was really only plagued by a death to the robots in the circle room and going a bit too ham in BTR. Besides that, there are countless highlights throughout many missions. At the end of Darkship, Goofy gets a 409 on the in-game timer as he opens the final door. A tremendous improvement over Bob and I, who were just barely averaging over 4 minutes. His movement at the beginning of Bomb Train is buttery smooth, without any stucks or bumps, and he reacts very quickly to a sneaky gecko trying to disrupt his flow. His overall approach in Palace Ruins was far more clever and thought out compared to runners prior. He was taking new lines throughout the level that decreased the risk of getting hit by enemies, and he was cognizant of how his jetboard would react to landing in certain areas. His knowledge and execution was just one level above everyone else.
Even stuff like Palace Ruins, where there's like tons of enemies around, I mean, he just navigates through it without, I mean, you can just tell he's been there, better of 1,000 times. Whether it's just through raw hours or experience or some other sort of, God-given talent or whatever, like Goof just gets it. He seems to, and you can just tell. It's incredible.
Goofy had separated himself from the pack. Bob and I were inactive in 2nd and 3rd place, so he could probably leave the category pretty comfortably without it being contested. That is, if he wanted to. No, this time he wanted to stay for just a bit longer, to see how low he could push his time. For the next 2 months, Goofy would continue to practice and hone his skills. No Oob was about to see some severe destruction. The community was witnessing the rise of the Intimidator.
When I watch him, he seems to be able to just not make mistakes. I don't understand how he does it. He just understands the game on a completely different level.
What's so special about Goofy, one is how confident he plays when he does play. He'll get times that sort of kind of put you in your place a little bit. And I think that confidence got him some insane times that I'm sure you could look back on now and be like, how the hell did he do that?
It's one of those things where you can go like natural talent and then someone will go, oh, there's nothing such as natural talent, because he put in his work.
BTR is ridiculous, dude. Like, we used to, like, as long as you don't flip, like, BTR is good. And then the more Goofy played it, the more it was like, wait a second, like, sub 2 is possible.
He plays nasty. Like, he's always going for some sick, stupid, hard stuff, and he looks so cool while he's doing it.
So if you have like Raccoon that's like clean, consistent, and then you that goes a bit more crazy, Goofy just all in.
It feels like he's not even that, like, analytical about anything. He just really cracked out. He's just so good.
Nobody wanted to compete with him. Like, everybody was so sure that if they beat Goofy, they would just get beaten back, and in the end it would just be Goofy to prevail.
On September 8th, 2016, Goofy would achieve 42.25, an absolutely incredible speedrun. The amount of hours he had put into the game finally paid off in one run. He really didn't hold back from anything that was known at the time either. Fast temple climb, jetboarding across the rotator, first barrier skip, the dark ship chain, it all made for such an incredible watch. There were still a few notable mistakes, but it kind of didn't matter. This was one of those runs where the pros heavily outfavored the cons. His island hop was flawless. His BTR segment was 159. I could sit here and mention things that went right all day, but I think what happens next is proof enough that this run was extremely strong. Goofy would try to improve on his run for the rest of 2016, perhaps attempting to push into the unthinkable realm of 41. But despite his best efforts, he wasn't able to beat it. If the game's best player couldn't do it, 42.25 was going to stand at the top for a long time. An event predicted by Bob many months ago.
Dude, Goofy's gonna get the God No out of bounds time, I think, as well. Like, there's no stopping that man.
Entering the new year of 2017, Goofy had a massive lead over the competition. Second place was still Bob with his 44.10, which was nearly a year old by now. A bit into the year, a new runner called Mickey PC would enter the top 3. He closed the gap on first place little by little by rapidly improving his PB throughout March of 2017. He eventually scored a 42.51, a remarkable time from such a new player. But achieving a 42 seemed to have been Mickey's ultimate goal all along. For as much promise as he showed, Mickey never tried to pursue the record. He was satisfied with his run and moved on to other endeavors. While Mickey had been working his way up the leaderboard in No Oob, I had also returned to the game that same month, but it was mostly to run all missions, which was starting to become my new main category. I did take a stab at No Oob very briefly to take advantage of the free time save and dex warp that my PB didn't have. I wasn't having as much fun with the category as I did with all missions, and I had no incentive to try and catch Goofy, so I left it at 43.39, being content with reclaiming my spot on the podium. And a top 3 placement was kind of just what you had to settle for by now. It might seem like Mickey and I were somewhat close, but the underlying intimidation factor was about what Goofy was capable of past his 42.25. His level of potential was night and day when comparing his BTR to ours. The absolute best Mickey and I could push the level to seems to have been hard capped around 210, according to our sum of best. This is an entire 10 seconds worse than what Goofy got in his world record run. And he doesn't even use splits, which means we don't have any idea how much better he has actually done. Is that above average? Is it bad? No one knows. BTR is definitely the most egregious example in this regard, but there are multiple segments in Goofy's record where some of his missions are done faster than anyone else's gold split. This time, Goofy had raised the bar to new heights. While he was sitting comfortably, others were playing catch-up. At the start of 2017, he held what many speedrunners could only dream of achieving, and that is the world record sweep, which for Jak 3 means holding all 5 main category world records at the same time. An incredible accomplishment showing his prowess in all aspects of the game. Despite the categories varying from 20 minutes to 4.5 hours, he was able to conquer them all. Any player saw his resume as something that was nearly impossible to topple, but in a sea of runners who were afraid of giving Goofy a real challenge, there was one player who wasn't deterred. Having just entered the top 5, a new Finnish player had aspirations of taking him down. From the get-go, Yonda showed a lot of potential as a Jak 3 runner, but in a rather unusual way. Some players exhibit their proficiency at the game by posting solid times in several categories, but Yonda pretty much only played No Oob, really the first time the category saw its first proper one-trick player. For much of 2017, the top 5 in No Oob would remain completely the same, but Yonda started climbing the ranks around September, achieving 43.38 to enter 3rd place. Yonda's method of improving his time was grind, grind, grind. When he was active and playing, it was for the whole day. His attempt counter was already in the thousands despite being pretty new, all things considered.
I don't know Yonda at all, but bro reset like 12,000 times. Like, what the fuck?
If you know kind of thing. When he did that, like, I don't know how long that stream was, but I'm pretty sure he said like he beat Jak 3 18 times during that stream or something, and we're talking about No Oob, not like hero mode or anything.
It would be nuts. Like, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd check my phone, I'd be like, oh shit, Yonda's streaming, and it'd be like at like the 8-hour mark in his stream already, and then I'd come home from school, I'd check like my computer, and it'd be like 17 hours into the stream, and I'm like, what the hell, you're still doing runs, man?
Yeah, Yonda was an all-out grinder. He was not afraid to spend his entire day pumping out runs, living that true gamer lifestyle. October 2017 would pass with no new PBs for Yonda. It then turned into November and still nothing. And going into the new year, he was still sitting at his 43.38 that he achieved in September. This wasn't due to inactivity, mind you. Yonda was playing frequently, but he wasn't seeing results as quickly as your usual player. A lot of runners throughout this series have gone through a phase where perfecting the early game was a big focus point. But as you gather more experience, it's generally seen as wiser to focus on consistency in the later game. Yonda was the most extreme case of this. He would reset not because he didn't want the time loss in his run, but rather because he didn't want the mistake he made to be the best showcase of what he was capable of. To put it simply, if the mistake was embarrassing enough, he wasn't taking the run, even if he could PB. Yonda also started experimenting with a new trick in training course that would increase the rate of resets tenfold. This is Flag Proxy. Flag Proxy was initially a useless swag strat discovered by a runner called Grig all the way back in early 2014. He discovered that you could gain substantial height by spamming the jump button against one of the flagpoles in the training course. As mentioned, this was thought to be entirely useless at the time of its discovery, but that would all change once the hover glitch was found. On January 2nd, 2015, runner Riley Got PB claimed to have pulled off a 25-second time on training course in hero mode, a time not achievable with the strategies known at the time. What Riley had done was simply screwing around in the level by leaving the intended inbounds area of the arena by hovering out of bounds. As he continued into the out of bounds void, the token counter started dropping fast. Very fast. You see, when the camera is moved far enough away from the tokens, they will begin to deload, which the game interprets as collected. Upon dying after having despawned every token, your checkpoint is set below the light that ends the mission, and you can simply hover up through the platform and start the cutscene. This would become the standard strategy in hero mode runs for years, but since you didn't have the jetboard in new game categories, such as no oob, collecting the tokens manually was our only option. Many who saw Greg's flag proxy video took his title at face value. This was his highest proxy ever, and he likely fiddled around with the trick a lot. But Goofy had an idea that it was theoretically possible to despawn the tokens if you could only go higher. He would approach Jack Glitch Hunter Bobby Kaze to fiddle around with it. And after a while, Bobby would post this video. And so, we had a training course skip in new game categories. There's a catch though. The trick's consistency was a joke. But it was right at the start of the run, so top players considered incorporating it because the time save was too good to pass up. If done completely optimally, Flag Proxy can save upwards of 18 seconds, but can be as bad as losing over 20 seconds if you get launched too high. Typically, a good launch will save you an average of 12 to 15, as getting a perfect one that's not too high is somewhat out of your control. The camera can also get stuck at the bottom of the arena after getting a launch, which is an instant reset. It needs to follow Jack upwards in order to despawn the tokens. Was this trick really worth it?
Go up to the flagpole, do it, barely go anywhere, camera doesn't follow them or something, reset, goes over and over and over again, and it's not for that much time save, but you really have to at that level of the game.
You know it's gonna work, but like eventually, and it's just random whether it does or not. So it's just like, if you get it, oh cool, like oh my god, you're in the air, like it just happened like that. If you don't get it, it's just a reset, and it's very monotonous because it's right at the beginning of the game, and oftentimes I would say like 80% of the time it just doesn't work.
I can definitely understand how flag proxy can be annoying, and it's like such an obstacle, especially when you're so confident in the rest of the game. You know, I've done the rest of the game so many times, I'm like, all I need to do is start a run, right?
Flag proxy is pretty funny because I feel like every so often someone will be like, I figured it out. I got consistent flag proxy because they got it like 3 times in a row with like a vague setup, and then they come to find in like 10 more tries, it's like, oh yeah, I just wasn't consistent at all. I just happened to get it.
You had satellite like immediately after. So you grind for 20 minutes to get a single flag proxy. You get out to satellite and you get like 0 doubles, and you're just like, God, you're right back into the flag proxy loop.
Goofy knew Flag Proxy was going to be extremely monotonous to grind for, but still decided to test the waters with it in a few any % attempts. After a few tries, he would complete a run 1 second slower than his current record, showcasing that the trick was viable with enough patience. Later on, he would improve the any % world record to 23:19, a run with a 23-second training course using Flag Proxy, saving about 15 over doing the level normally. This really opened the doors for the rest of the new game categories. If you're crazy enough, it was technically possible to do Flag Proxy in 100%, all missions, and no oob as well. As 2018 rolled around, Yonda would finally break through with a new PB of 42:48 on January 6th, and he now decided it was time to commit to going for Flag Proxy in no oob.
It's hard, it's mentally grueling. You have to go into it, in my mind, with the attitude of like, I could spend 15 minutes easily just trying to get a run started. And it's awful, or it felt awful, if you're not mentally prepared for it. Like, if you're serious about, what you're trying to do speedrun wise, you have to tell yourself, like, this is going to take some time to get through, and you just have to be ready for that.
Yonda's Flag Proxy attempts were a mixed bag. He was getting PBs with the trick, but the game was definitely taunting him. He would improve by 1 second, then by another second, and then by 6 seconds. Not really what he was hoping for, but at the very least he was stringing together a few PBs. Goofy was easily the most inactive he had been since he started in 2015, at least in no oob. So Yonda had a window of opportunity to break the record. He just needed a big one, and it was his. On January 27th, 2018, Yonda got a great flag proxy that saved 15 seconds over a normal training course. He would get 5 doubles on Satellite, starting out the run pretty hot. Some of Yonda's strategy choices were a tad more safe than Goofy, like on Temple Climb, and using a slower beam reflexor strategy in the circle room to ensure that he doesn't die to the robots. By Defend Ashlyn, Yonda completes the mission at exactly the 20-minute mark, now 6 seconds ahead of Goofy's record. The mid-game goes very well, now finding himself 42 seconds ahead after Bomb Train. We were watching a genuine 41 pace run in the making, but right as everyone's hopes were up, Yonda flubs shooting the enemies off in Precursor Robot, and a poor BTR would seal the deal. The level once again takes away the hopes and dreams of another runner. He would finish with 42.33, still a PB, but man, this could have been something special. Yonda didn't even bother saving the splits. He just went right back to the main menu and continued to grind away, despite being hours into the stream already. How he hadn't given up from exhaustion is beyond me. Yonda was simply built different. He was gonna embark on a full-on degen speedrunning all-nighter. Fueled by an incredible amount of determination, he was gonna take down the king, and he was doing it tonight.
3, 2, 1, go!
Autopilot. Disengaging. Warning, energy low. Force wall.
Finally, it was his. On January 27th, 2018, Yonda was the new world record holder in Jak 3 No Oob, a dream he had been chasing for months and months. When it was all said and done, he couldn't hold back the tears. In his own words, "I don't think I've cried over a bad run before." Yonda's story is special because he may not be the most optimal player, doing the fastest strats and practicing religiously, but he got to the top his way and his way only. He had a formula that was called grind until my hands fell off, and it worked. Yonda's quest in obtaining the world record is the definition of an underdog story. A guy who never had much in the way of consistency, but pushed through despite his shortcomings. His slow and incremental improvements ultimately got him to the top. There are 3 highlights that still remain from Yonda's insane all-nighter, and throughout, the attempt counter climbs exponentially. Separating these 2 runs were 503 attempts. This count could be a somewhat standard session in a select few speed games where resetting is very quick, but in Jak 3's case, it takes a while to get back into a run again. In fact, here, let me show you the full duration of a reset. not overly long, but it's definitely not short. Let's call it 22.5 seconds. Yonda spending 22.5 seconds between 503 attempts comes out to 3 hours and 8 minutes. That is over 3 hours spent, essentially waiting. Additionally, I can with full certainty tell you that we're actually lowballing this number. Yonda himself has estimated the attempts he put in before getting the 4233 to be between 150 to 250. So this number could easily be in the 4 hours. Furthermore, Yonda estimates his grind to have been between 12 to 17 hours, and doesn't recall eating once. The statistics surrounding this mere 7-second improvement on the record is fascinating to me. It's a truly absurd story in an obscure corner of internet history, but the conditions in which he got the time is just the tip of the iceberg. What if I were to tell you that Yonda's record has a bit of an asterisk next to it? We're now about to enter a part of Jak 3's history that is filled with confusion, uncertainty, and frustration. So one of the big reasons it took nearly a year and a half to beat Goofy's time is because we do have a bit of a lack in video and proof. I've done my best from a research point to portray this all accurately, but this was honestly a bit of a mess. And I know, I said there wouldn't be any more holes in video proof, but I kinda caught this one last minute. Anyway, let's establish a timeline. Goofy's 4225 was set on September 8th, 2016. This would stand for a long time until I posted a peculiar message on March 22nd of 2017 in the Jak Speedruns Discord. After achieving my, at the time, 3rd place, I asked if anyone had Goofy's 4117 on hand, to which I got no response. Perhaps he achieved this time but forgot to highlight it on his Twitch page. No one remembers this time being set, and there is no video. 2 months later on May 5th, Goofy would post some splits claiming to have achieved another 4217. Again, there is no video to go along, but this time we had a set of splits giving it a bit more validity. We can see he was comparing against his 4225, but that was about it. The following month, on June 12th, Goofy would again claim another 4217 in a no-oob race. After being asked what his prior PB was, he said 4225. Maybe he forgot that he had 4217 already, but I really don't know. So now we have 3 instances of Goofy achieving the same time, but none of them have video. So why is this all important? Didn't Yonda beat all of these times by a second with 4216? Well, if we look at the end of his run, it is very clear that he split extremely early, so the run was retimed to a 4217. This retime was simply taken at face value back then. But looking at it today, I had to double check, so I decided to frame time the run myself, and it came out to a 42:18.067, meaning that it's possible Yonda never truly had the record. What's even more confusing is that the world record at the bottom of his splits, that I've been trying to hide until now, is 42:15. This was a time that Yonda was told midstream that Goofy had achieved, but was apparently some sort of misunderstanding. I really don't know. So yeah, this is all over the place, and while it's likely that Goofy may have had a better time, 1, it shouldn't take away from Yonda's achievement, and 2, this is still the fastest time with video proof, and at the time it was believed to be the record. Make of it what you will, but going forward, Yonda would be the proven record holder at 42:18, a time that would sit atop the leaderboards for months. It must have been a relieving feeling to see his name atop speedrun.com. He did attempt to push his time to a 41, with his attempt counter going places no runner had gone before. With all the things that had to go right now, the category was getting tough to lower. Both Yonda and Goofy had paces to achieve the elusive 41, with none of them managing to break through. Where was Goofy anyway? Surely if he came back and gave it an honest effort, he would snag the record in no time and get that 41. Unlike Yonda, Goofy didn't always stream his attempts, so it was difficult to know if he was pursuing the record. He would often run offline, either by himself or in a call with a few friends. Many thought he would retaliate quickly after losing his record, but this time, he was radio silent.
Goofy doesn't really, we don't really know what this man is up to, on a daily. You know, he could be grinding out runs, he could be just chilling. That's just how he is, man. He's mysterious. He works in just his own ways. That's the way he works best.
We're now in June 2018. Yonda has still yet to improve the record despite 5 months passing. Goofy is still nowhere to be found, and the upcoming players still have a bit to go. Bob was back with a PB, so that's sick.
This game is easy.
The direction of the category was unclear at this time, but out of nowhere, Goofy just dropped a casual 3-second record and vanished back into the shadows.
Goofy, he was a very mysterious guy to me, actually. A little bit anonymous, very low-key. The mysterious part about Goofy is you don't know how many hours he's put into the game, right? Because he does offline attempts. It seems like he's very consistent, and he can just pick up the game and just get it. He just plays and he just gets the time.
So to me, Goofy is almost like this mythical sage who lives on the mountaintop. You never hear a peep out of him, except for like once a year he comes down from the mountain, and then he's just like, here's my world record run that I got after grinding for 3.5 hours. Farewell. And then he just dips. And you never... You're just like, what? He takes like 5 attempts, grabs record, and he's like, yeah, that was fun. And then he's gone.
So the record was back in Goofy's hands. One might think that he was going to lower it, or Yonda was going to respond. But nope. No Oob wasn't seeing much action. His time just sat there, unchallenged, for months and months. After a long absence away from the game, Goofy would once again reappear in November 2018, with no one quite knowing how long he was here to stay this time.
He comes out of nowhere. Every single time.
I feel like he just doesn't get rusty. I feel like his D-rust is an hour, no matter how long he hasn't played.
He's almost like a Yankee that continued playing. He's just, yeah, he's freaking super good, dude.
What a spree from Goofy, lowering the record 3 times in total across 3 weeks, landing on 4130 by the end of his grind. I know I'm a broken record at this point, but Goofy's BTRs in these runs are insane. 2 of his records had 157s, just an unreal time to even conceive of. While his gameplay was improving noticeably after all these years, there were of course a few new strategies that helped him lower the time. Flag proxy was a trick Goofy quickly adjusted to as he had already been doing it in any percent, so it was essentially free time save with a little bit of patience. A new corner cut was discovered in the temple after collecting the tokens that saved around 3.5 seconds in total. This was first incorporated by Yonda, where instead of grinding on the rail to enter the tunnel ahead of you, you can hover into a different tunnel on the right. By looking at the map, it's easy to tell it's a shorter path to the rotator room. Goofy tweaked the strategy to his liking, doing some swaggy front flip movement instead, as he didn't want to deal with the small lip at the top of the stairs that could eat your speed if you tried to hover. A new route for Bomb Train was discovered that saved around 10 seconds in total. This was a really nice find as it required some out-of-the-box thinking. After hitting the first 3 targets as usual, Goofy jetboards over to where the mission would normally end using the old strat while ignoring all of the targets. He then shoots those targets and starts backtracking through the level to a specific railing. Once on it, he performs an extended uppercut and sprays the beam reflexor rapidly while descending, hitting all the targets and finishing the mission as he landed at the bottom part of the eco mine. What he did was effectively manipulate the elevator after finishing the level to spawn at the bottom, to skip the entire elevator ride where Jack is normally locked in place. This works because the elevator is placed in correspondence to Jack's Y coordinate after finishing Bomb Train. Since you end the mission in this bottom area, the elevator is also placed down here at its lowest point. Pretty cool stuff. Besides the time save, something very useful was also discovered for all 3 Jack games during Goofy's absence. A button combination that activated a developer debug mode was discovered, which helped out quite a bit in the glitch hunting department. We could now float around, see information about certain triggers, give ourselves all the orbs and items, which by the way instantly gives you the Platinum Trophy on PS3 and up, and also enter free cam mode, which helped analyzing levels from new angles. It could also help out a tad with practice, but Goofy didn't even really use it. He got 4130 the old-fashioned way. A, frankly, pretty insane time. It's such a clean run from start to finish with only one real mistake, and it's 7 seconds to missing fast cycle on Terraformer, which isn't even that bad. The flag proxy was 23 seconds, which is nearly perfect. He got 6 doubles on Satellite. His temple climb was perfect. His Ashland had good luck. His rotator room was perfect. He got the wall skip in Palace Ruins. His BTR was above average. And his final boss segment was solid too. You really couldn't ask for a better run. 2016 Goofy was already the game's best player, but 2018 Goofy was just that one step above.
But I definitely had more experience as a player, right? And just in speedrunning in general, that goes a long way in terms of finishing runs out and nerves and all kinds of other factors that go into just speedrunning. The more of like a veteran speedrunner you are, I guess your clutch factor kind of goes up. I wouldn't say that necessarily, but like you're more calm in scenarios and it feels more second nature. I play in like really short bursts. It's hard to find like that motivation, but when I get it, it's there for like a solid week and I really want to like get a time that I'm happy with.
At the end of 2018, Goofy sat at the top with his 4130. Yonda still hadn't PB'd even once, despite pouring in thousands of attempts. With his slower rate of improvement, it kinda seemed like his window of opportunity to take the record back was slipping away. I would once again re-enter the podium with a 4250, but I wasn't trying to bite off more than I could chew. To be a bit more harsh, with the quality of Goofy's new record, Yonda and I, and to a larger extent anyone else who you see on this leaderboard, we just didn't stand a chance. Goofy was seriously that good in 2018. This 4130 was a statement. To challenge him, you might just have to pray for a new strat to be found, as it would require a Herculean effort to beat him at his own game. Was he going to continue his reign at the top forever, or was someone going to hone their skills enough to pose a threat? Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing or supporting me on Patreon. Take care, and I'll see you next time for Era 8.